remember, hit subscribe everywhere you get your shows. Never miss an episode. Another really good one, a follow-up and kind of a where we left off was an intensive moment where I think for most folks, at least certainly for mine, one of my greatest fears in life would be wrongfully imprisoned. And you hear the stories. He's released 30 years later on DNA or anytime you're unjustly abused by the legal system, it's a nightmare. And so I pray to God all the time, please don't put me in a position to ever have to face legal jeopardy because you just don't know. Of course, we go back to the state of Utah. Shawn Young basically told us a very complex, very corrupted, very disturbing story of allegations gone wild, corruption inside of the judicial system, blackmailing going on. I mean, just absolutely littered with all sorts of how can this still be happening in America? And so he's got a follow up for us. We'll pick it up from there. Of course, it was divorce gone wrong. Of course, it was the legal system gone wrong. Of course, it's custody gone wrong. Of course, this is a nightmare. He's living it. Shawn, welcome in. Thanks so much for coming back in. So you had your hearing recently, and I know we talked about this. There was social media. You weren't allowed to say to the principal, tell my kids I love them, give them a gift for me. All these things were forbidden, supposedly. And so I guess you had a hearing and there was some rulings over that. And we have sort of a path forward here, what it looks like for you. Pick it up from there, if you would, Shawn.
Sure. So basically, the hearing that we had on the 12th of this month was a motion to dismiss basically this charge of me responding to a principal's email, or I would get attendance records from my two daughters' principals every month. In the divorce decree, I was given the right to have medical records and school records. And so it was within my right to communicate with the principal. Going into the holidays, after she had sent the attendance records just right before Thanksgiving, I basically respond back with, can you give my kids a hug if you see them, tell them their dad loves them, and maybe I could send a gift to the school. And that ultimately led to a criminal charge February of 2024. And basically still hasn't been resolved up to this point. So after that charge took place, it ended up almost 8 months in jail, extradition, tracked down by federal agents and local police in Nevada, just all kinds of different things that you would never think an email would trigger. And in Utah, if it has a domestic violence component labeled on the charge, it requires a mandatory arrest by law enforcement. And so when they initially charged me, it was a third-degree felony for domestic violence. So that triggers an automatic arrest. According to attorney friends that I have, they said that it gives them the right to break down the door of your house and come in and arrest you at gunpoint. They don't need a warrant. Basically, that DV label just allows them to strip all your rights in the name of, protecting women.
And just for the listeners, this is domestic violence stemming from the principal email.
Exactly.
That's a stretch. Okay, continue.
And so also when it was initially charged, it was a third-degree felony. And since then, and since I got extradited, and I think I've had 14 different hearings in the last year, it's now a Class B misdemeanor with no domestic violence component. And so I've regularly asked myself, why initially was this a domestic violence felony? But it's because it allowed them to extradite me from Nevada because it was under the felony label. And then the domestic violence piece just...
You believe the state of Utah wanted you. They wanted this case. Yeah.
Exactly. And to me, what's crazy is they can do all that. It can be completely wrong. And we're in court and they're still treating me like this horrible person after they just ripped me from my family. They're about to rip me from my family again. And so there's no consequence to the detective or the prosecutor or all these people that basically make up what a third-degree felony for domestic violence is. They can just change it down the road and then nobody even looks at it.
But you suffered the arrest, the extradition, the imprisonment. Yeah, but okay, we were able to lower the charge. That is dirty, dirty cards. So then the hearing that was recent is still stemming from that event, correct so far? And this was a judge to rule on all the conditions around your pending charges. Is that fair? Take us into that hearing. Take us into the developments to get us into that day.
So that hearing was the third motion to dismiss on the case. Um, Basically, we put together just all the facts that really we didn't think could be beat or could be argued. Going back to the commissioner that in 2019 put the order out there, he confirmed that after 150 days, the kids would fall off the order. And so he updated it, he took the kids off. That was kind of going the extra mile. Um, Looking at the divorce decree, seeing my rights within the divorce decree, that same commissioner said the judge wouldn't have issued a divorce decree that if you exercise your rights, you're going to violate a protective order. That's just another reason, an example that the kids were not on there. And so there's just so many things like that. And we just thought there's not going to be any defense for it. And those type of protective orders, they changed from being a 10-year protective order to a 3-year protective order, because I think they had all kinds of problems with them. And then that type of protective order at the time they claimed was half civil and half criminal, but it wasn't outlined very well. The previous judge before this judge, in the hearings you listened to from the end of last year, is like, this is a mess. This doesn't make any sense. We don't understand it. I'm just looking at it. Um, but I got this new guy at the beginning of the year, a younger judge, brand new, and he's very demeaning. He's very hostile, very escalate if I try to clarify any issues. And in the last hearing, he told me that a defense. So my attorney in 2019, he's now in the Attorney General's office as a prosecutor, and he remembers everything that happened in 2019 with the kids falling off after the 150-day rule, because they're the only alleged victims in this.
Mm.
And so he went to court in February and pulled the prosecutor aside, it was my last attorney aside at that time, Ed, and read them the laws and showed them you can't be prosecuting him for this. Um, and it's, a gray area for him because now he works for the state, but he's like, I can be a witness. I was there. I represented you at the time, so I can testify to that. And
So that should
so
be open and shut right there. We should be, okay, perfect. We have a credible witness. He's defined the law. Anything else you need from us? That's the way that feels, but that's not. So was that then the discussion, the topic for the hearing to say if this should proceed as charges?
exactly.
Okay.
And just one of the points the judge made though in his ruling was, just because your attorney told you this, even if he comes and testifies to what you're saying, it doesn't matter. That's not a defense. And so the court systems constantly won't let you talk. They want you to get an attorney. Everything is get an attorney, get an attorney, get an attorney. But this is the first judge I've ever heard say it doesn't matter what your attorney tells you. You should know the laws better than them, basically.
Oh,
And so it's a system that is so, all the cards are stacked against you. And in Utah, this idea where a woman can make false allegations, she can lie to the police, she can lie in open court under oath, and they will not prosecute them for lying or for perjury. They actually give them a very big platform for it. They put victim advocates labeled behind them where they all show up with them in court. And it's a huge problem that people are perfectly okay having a system that's not built on facts or truth, and it's screwed up a lot, and a lot of people are caught up in it.
yeah, and it feels like that's ingrained in the system, maybe extra corrupted in Utah, but you hear that all over the country. The dad, the spouse, if you want to get the kids, if you want to get the upper hand, just go right to the spousal abuse, go right to the allegations, and then you've instantly shifted it into your favor. So then, of course, this demonic judge that you just oversaw the latest hearing is, of course, saying, let's continue the prosecution of Shawn Young. Let's go. So then at that point, what was the fate? What's the destiny from that hearing and conclusion?
Well, so a couple weeks before the hearing, my attorneys filed a motion to basically reconsider my current house arrest situation.
Yes.
It's been almost 9 months since we've been on house arrest, and it's unbelievable that they've been able to drag it that long, but then keep me on house arrest where my family's basically stuck. And so
Outrageous.
once they filed that motion, the state prosecutor filed a motion to put me back in jail based on three social media posts, one from December, one from January, and one from February. And so it feels very much like he's retaliating because I got these new attorneys in May, and the stuff they've been filing in court, they're calling out, malicious prosecution, systematic failures, all kinds of things that are happening. Um, and one thing the judge, because one of the points that they made in the last hearing was it took 235 days of me being in jail to do a preliminary hearing. And based on the rules of criminal procedure in Utah, it's supposed to be within 14 days if you're incarcerated or 28 days if you're not incarcerated. And he was able to basically take that information and spin it of that it was my fault and that I was given my 14-day right to a preliminary hearing. But because of the extradition, because of my attorneys making mistakes,
You
because
waived
of
it.
all these different things, um,
That's crazy.
so
Now, in these social media posts, any threats to human life, any threats of violence? Boy, it sounds like to lock you up, those social media posts had to be pretty supercharged. Is that the case?
well, that's what's crazy. And I'll just read some of
Yeah,
them.
go ahead.
Um,
I'd love to hear what gets you locked up in Utah.
yeah. So, and I don't know if you can see this,
Oh,
but
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I got you. Mm-hmm. That's a
basically, that's,
12/6/24. Okay, go from there. What are you saying there?
yeah. So that's me and my middle daughter. And I basically, this is on her birth, or no, this is December 6th, 2024. Okay, so it's not her birthday. It just says, I love and miss this daughter of mine. I cannot believe I haven't seen you in person in over 3 years. I cannot believe you were stolen and erased from my life by your mother and Utah's corrupt government at the end of 2018. Keep smiling, baby girl. So,
That qualified, though, as a breach of your condition. And that was
correct.
also discussed at this last hearing. The nature of these things. So the courts are basically ruling, though, these are inflammatory. These are breach of domestic violence restraint orders. Um, that's breathtaking. So oversaw it, and they ruled, yes, this is enough to continue your prosecution, right?
So it's kind of two different things, even though they are kind of linked. So the ruling to deny or to on the motion to dismiss was denied. So the
Okay, so
prosecution
charges are proceeding.
charges are
And that's the
proceeding
misdemeanor charge for the social media that was downgraded. Is that fair so far?
for the email.
For the email. Okay. Yeah. The school email. Okay.
Correct.
And then the
Correct.
second component.
And then the second component is when we filed our motion to get me off house arrest, the state filed another motion countering it to put me back in jail. And they said it was because I violated my release conditions of posting on social media. And so, in the motion related to the one I just read, this was the state's argument. It says on December 6, 2024, defendant made a social media post that was harassing to the victim of these cases. I love and miss this daughter of mine. I cannot believe I haven't seen you in person in over 3 years. I cannot believe you were stolen and erased from my life by your mother and Utah's corrupt government at the end of 2018. So that, in their eyes, is harassing to the victims,
Wow.
which would be my ex-wife and my daughters.
Even though it was nothing but love poured out for your daughter, and you could feel the pain in every, letter of that. Even so that is corrupt, though. That is absolutely a corruptive way. So they say, nope, you can't do that in Utah. Can't speak like that to us. And obviously, it's not about the victim. You insulted the Utah government, and they don't take. I mean, you don't insult the Department of Justice. You don't you don't do those kind of things unless you want to pay a price. That's the corrupt nature of so much litter in the legal system. So you've got the misdemeanor charge.
Mhm.
What else hangs over you, pins over you as a result of this?
Well, so, and on the 26th, that's the next hearing. Basically, these three social media posts, it's gonna be ruled on then as far as if the judge wants to put me back in jail for it. But the reason that I'm very concerned is so June 2nd was supposed to be this hearing that we just had, as far as the motion to dismiss. and it got pushed out till the end of July because the prosecutor was on extended medical leave. So he didn't show up for the hearing that we got prepared for in June. And then when he wasn't there, the state basically just got a 2-month extension. And so we just had to sit on house arrest for 2 months. And then
Jeez.
the end of July came around, and a week before he said, "Oh, I'm not going to be available. It needs to be pushed out 2 more weeks." So that was just 2.5 months wasted. But pretty much normal in this case in the past year. Everything is always continued. They're never ready or never in the office. And so I kind of expected, maybe this guy's gonna, apologize or feel bad for continuing this, but no, absolutely not. Um, and so ask me your question again. I'm sorry.
Well, so you've got the misdemeanor. What also hangs in the balance, and this is the 26th to rule on. You said you were concerned about the 26th because
Okay.
of.
Okay. So on June 2nd, my attorneys asked if I could be virtual on the hearing. And because the prosecutor wasn't there, he didn't know that. So in the hearing just a few days ago, um, they basically waited 2 hours to call the case. And there's like, "Where's Shawn Young? Why isn't he here?" And my attorneys are like, "He's on WebEx. We're here. You gave permission at the last hearing for him to be virtual."
Yeah.
And the judge is like, "I believe you, but I forgot about that." And the prosecutor's like, "Oh, we really thought he was going to be here." And as soon as they called my name, 3 police officers walked into the room. And
Oh,
so,
they wanted to take you away sight on scene.
exactly.
Wow.
And so when we didn't get to the part about releasing me from home confinement at that hearing on the 12th, the judge said, "Let's come back in 2 weeks, and I want Mr. Young in person." And so obviously, if he's
Wow.
saying you have to be here, I'm going to walk into it and just be arrested.
And then at that time, though, I mean, at some point they have to have a resolution, a trial, and we are going to go in front of your peers, and they're going to say, yes, this was a crime. He needs to serve additional time. That's still to be determined, though. You don't have a trial date.
That's to be determined. In their case of putting me back in jail, what they're asking for is there were cases from 2021 that we talked a little bit about in your last
Yes.
show. And they're basically saying we don't want to hold him anymore on this newest charge, but we want him to go to trial for the 2021 charges.
Right.
And so, assuming they put me back in jail on the 26th, we're going to invoke my speedy trial rights. My understanding is it's a federal statute, it's not by the states. And so, I think on the federal statute, it's 70 days. I do know when we scheduled the trial in February, it was supposed to be in June, the same trial. The soonest they had was 4 months out. That's why it was, four months away. So
You had to
they
get an
take me into
appointment out
custody.
there. Jeez.
So yeah, they take me into custody. They could say we don't have availability for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Then we schedule it. But the way it works is they schedule, say, 5 different trials at the same time. And so once you get to your trial date, a week or two before, they decide if you're the one that's going to get that spot. And if you don't, now they just continue it another few months. And
So
so
won't there be a bond process? I mean, like, oh, so many you can bond out once they take you in. Are you saying that this would be a no bond type of hold?
Well, that's what's been crazy is that whole email thing was a no bond hold, and I'm in jail for 8 months. And I found out there's a statute in Utah that if you have a felony charge, which from 2020 I do have a felony charge, that's a whole other story,
Right.
and was a big mistake that I pled guilty, thinking a year later it was going to go away based on what my attorneys told me then. But so I do have that. So with that charge, if there's a new felony charge, so it's felony on felony, then they have the right to hold you with no bail and give
Oh,
you, no bond. And
geez.
so, but it does bring up the question of now that charge is a misdemeanor, so it's no longer felony on felony,
Off the table.
and that will be part of the argument on the 26th. But
Jeez, man.
and the other part is when they give you release conditions and at the time, the prosecutor was basically just throwing everything he could as far as conditions when I'm getting out on house arrest. And the judge basically kind of regurgitates what the prosecutor says. but he never asks me if I understand. I ask the judge, I say, I really want to do what you want. Let me clarify some issues with you. And my attorney basically says, I'll talk to the prosecutor. We'll get this worked out. And the judge says, at the next hearing, remind me, and we'll bring this up just kind of to confirm so I know what's going on. Because how do
Yeah.
you follow orders if you
Right.
don't even know what they are?
And if you miss one of the orders, you're popped for 8 months. You're popped for indefinite times. Any idea what you have financially into this case? Just on, I mean, this sounds expensive, all these hearings and 6 years of, any idea what you're into it?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean,
Big
in the
numbers,
hundreds
though.
of thousands, I would say.
We're talking big numbers, and still really no end in sight until that trial comes, right? So those attorney fees are still clicking, the confinement's still going. Um, I've always thought, like, spending 30 years in jail for a crime you didn't commit would be just like, how do you ever restore that person? I'm of this opinion. If you spend one false day in jail, instant millionaire. 30 years, you are a billionaire. You should be so much richer than a Barack Obama or a Nancy Pelosi or all these scumbags that we're describing in politics now, because it's that horrific to have those rights and that freedom deprived. I think I want to touch on this kind of on our last little segment here. You talked about this, and this is so important. The reason we have such rot in our Black culture and our Black community is the dads are all gone. The dads have fled the home, and they've been doing that for 50 years. And you are feeling the repercussions of fatherless homes, of dads that just, there's no influence, there's no role modeling going on in the inner city Black, mostly a Black problem. But in this case, the state of Utah would actually they would prefer to separate you from your children, and in fact making your family a fatherless family. Just speak into how disgusting that really is when you think about the victims. And I think you've paid a lot of price for this. They're asking for more, but is a child's upbringing, I mean, a family security, you being in your proper role with a family, I mean, that's like another punishment onto itself. Speak into that if you would.
For sure. I mean, every study that you read, in the friends or families where kids don't have dads, it's there's not really even any debate as far as kids need their dads, and I mean they need their mom and their dads. And
Yeah.
there's different roles that each one of those people play.
They need God's family structure.
Exactly. Um, and so it really disgusts me, and I think we talked about this last time, but to grow up in Utah, to be in a Mormon culture, to be in a culture that preaches family values,
Ugh.
and then you see these structures in place that are the opposite of what they teach in their churches. And so,
Right.
you know,
Remember,
it,
Mormonism is idolatry. It is a form of demonic worship. Galatians 1:6 tells us, Paul tells us, if anybody comes to you speaking, preaching anything other than the good news we preach, know it comes from Satan. No, it's not from us. And that's what you're finding is it makes sense it's a corruptive legislative judicial process. Look at what they're worshiping. Go ahead, continue.
right. Well, and I mean, for me, any religion, as far as, a lot of people get this idea that being a part of a religion is going to connect them to God. And that may be the case,
Right.
or people's belief, but I really feel like there's no connection. You want a relationship with God, you get on your knees and you pray, and
Amen.
you can get that. Um, but no, as far as and I've thought a lot about this, and maybe I, shouldn't even say it, but um, when I was in jail this last time, because I've been at this thing for 7 years,
Yeah.
fighting these courts, seeing the result of what happened to my own kids, and then hearing from so many families, whether it's the dad going through it, the mom going through it, the kids going through it. I've heard all those stories. And so this last time when I was thrown in jail for 8 months over an email, I thought, man, when I get out of jail, this story is going to be big and people are going to be very interested. And it's really going to just put a spotlight on all the things I've been saying for several years. And so, and when I got out of jail, I was also thinking, man, I've got a huge civil lawsuit. All
Yes.
this stuff is going to go away. And
You're going to be a
so,
millionaire post this thing. That's what I'd be thinking. You keep it
right.
coming every day in jail. It's another cha-ching.
Exactly. And kind of mentally, that's one of the biggest ways in jail
Yeah.
you kind of justify it in your mind
Yep.
is at the end of this, at least, maybe God's putting me through this. So when I come out, I can
We
share
will
this
be
experience.
persecuted. We know that.
Right. Um, and so when I got out, even if, which I completely am saying, um, these different restrictions that they're saying I violated based on the conversation when I was released were not the conditions. And um, so when they do it like a written order, let's see what I have here. Oh yeah.
Okay.
So a written order, they basically say it is hereby ordered that bail in the above entitled case is decreased from non-bondable to 5,000 if if the defendant posts bail, court orders an ankle monitor be placed by AMP prior to the release. The defendant is placed on home confinement. Exceptions to home confinement include medical, court, and attorney appointments. And so that's the written order. And so when I'm asking my attorney at the time to clarify 6 weeks later, I say, is there anything related to my social media? And he says, no, it's not in the order. And he's like, it's
Mm,
freedom of speech. And so, but that was the other question is if you're released from jail and the judge is giving you conditions, the way the statute's written is it's saying that you're supposed to give somebody a monetary bail and then basically the least restrictive conditions. Those are kind of the two things.
right.
And then you look at are they a danger to the community and are they a flight risk? And so where they're now trying to put me in jail over social media posts from December, January, and February is like if I was a threat or a danger, why wouldn't they have come at me 6, 7 months ago?
That's right.
Um, but going back to just this whole experience and trying to make the best out of it, but then spread as much awareness as I can as I'm going through it. It's an important thing for me to know coming out of jail, sharing my story like I have the last 9 months, and knowing that not many people care. And the reason that's important is it shows me that this happens all of the time.
Mm,
And
right.
so to me, until more people start getting their stories out, until there's more platforms out there putting a spotlight on these issues, I mean, for me, I mean, I don't know, I think we talked a little bit about this last time, but I'm very lucky compared to most people that go through
Sure.
something like this because of the dad that I have, because of the family that I have,
Yeah.
because of my fiance, 18-month-old
Mm,
son that is just a huge blessing to be a dad again.
yeah.
But when you're in jail for several months, you connect with the people that are in there, no matter what they're in there for. And so once you see this system that is literally built to any little thing you do wrong, they can do whatever they want to you. As is this case of these 3 social media posts putting me back in jail, is when they're releasing people from jail or prison, they're putting them on these different, whether it's probation or conditions of release, knowing that that person is going to fail and really hoping that person's going to
Yeah.
fail. So they're just inventory, and it's just this, cycle of insanity that never ends. And then people wonder why these people turn into animals
Yeah.
or decide not to be a part of society when you get wronged and smashed so hard by things that are supposed to be fair and just. Um, it's just not right.
Yeah, and if they were executing murderers and executing rapists and executing child predators, then I would say, okay, yeah, that's fine. This is a strict country, so you're going to get, they don't mess around. But we do none of that. In fact, you've been through more a rapist would go through. You've been more a pedophile will go through. Our pedophiles are protected because why? That's who's overseeing our judicial. These people are corrupted. They do prey on children. They know separating fathers from children, stealing their gender, their identity, their innocence. These people are working, and in this case, they came at you this way, and this is what they've done to you. So this is what I want to do with us. I know we still have more coming in this case. I know there's still going to be more, and we still hold out hope because God can restore stuff like this, like that. And we know that this test right now is for a very specific purpose because holy cow, coming back from this one, can you imagine the story written, the comeback, the expose on corruption, and then change begins to happen in the culture. And they say, well, hold on a second. I thought all Mormons were really good people. Oh, no, sweetie, that's a demonic lie. And I can show that to you demonstrably. I can prove that to you demonstrably. This is what they did to my life when I was selected, when I dare stood back, when I dare did X, Y, Z in this case. And just so you know, be grateful it didn't happen to you, but just know this stuff is out there. They're coming at you, and it's a spiritual, demonic. I've never heard anybody in the legal system say, oh, what a great experience that was. Oh, that was fantastic. I would say about 90% of lawyers are certainly either godless, atheists. They're not walking Christians. I absolutely know that. You enter that field, you are saturated by that kind of people. And so I'm so sorry for anybody that has to get exposed to it, especially in an unjust manner. Shawn Young, give us places where we can follow you, connect with you, support you. Give us all the areas the best way.
So the only place now is just my Instagram at Utah Corruption.
Nice. And I love the name because it's like they're offended in the social media. Just your name, it should offend them, right? Okay. But you know what? That should be taken down then. I think Instagram would take that down if that was a threat to society, if that was hateful speech. I mean, give me a break. So we'll catch you on the Insta, Utah Corruption. And I'm ready to sign up for that right now. Doesn't surprise me when that's the religion of the state and these are the outcomes you see. I'm sorry you got exposed to that state. I take it as great forewarning. Don't spend much time there. Maybe if you're passing through, don't go the speed limit in Utah. You never know. That's the feeling I get. I'm going to be a really good boy, a little choir boy, every time I pass through the state, maybe on a cross country. But you're going to be in our prayers. We're going to reconvene. We'll touch base, of course. Next things up, we'll follow you. And folks, do this until next time. Serve God, help others, stay good. Goodbye. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.